time for Fully Threaded Radio.
It is Fully Threaded Radio, voice of the FCH Sourcing Network. This is Eric Dudas, and I'm joined today, as always, with my partner, the hardest working man in the Fasteners Sourcing Network business, Mr. Brian Musker. Brian, you ready to go?
Yes, I am. I think there'd be a number of people who would dispute that claim, okay? A lot of people work hard in this industry.
Yes, but in the sourcing network business?
And that too.
This is episode 6, and we'll be uploading it to the fullythreaded.com website on May 27th, 2010. Well, Brian, you sound well rested. I, on the other hand, spent the day yesterday at NIFS East in Columbus, and after driving home a long distance, we recorded the summary of that event, and we'll be playing that a little bit later. So this episode was a bit of a scramble, and it'll be up a little bit later than usual.
Right, and it may be that I sound rested, but the reality is that we've had a whole heap of members refreshing their inventory, which is good for us because that just means the numbers are much more accurate, and it's a good sign.
Well, that's good for everybody.
Yep, yeah. And our members, whenever someone looks at an inquiry, they see either when the quantities were last changed or when it was actually uploaded. Despite the trouble it may cause us, the fact is this is the whole point of Fasteners Clearinghouse, getting accurate inventory levels and making them available to people.
Absolutely. We try to keep it as current as we can. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. As we looked at the lineup for today's episode, the theme was clear, and that is networking. If you operate in the fastener industry, on the sales side or otherwise, you need to be networking, and our feature segments are all about just that. We'll start, however, with a report from industry analyst Holden Lewis. He focuses on manufacturing and industrial supply for BB&T capital markets. We'll begin our second segment with a look at a couple of fantastic networking opportunities that are being presented by the Pacific West Fastener Association and also by the Midwest Fastener Association, and these are happening in June. We'll then play a conversation that we had with Janice Ceresa of Anixter. She's with the Aerospace Fasteners Group, and she's also the owner, or the administrator, I think she prefers to think of it as, of the Fasteners Industry LinkedIn group that some 2,200 of us use. We'll get to know Janice a little bit better and hear her philosophy and approach to online social media as it applies to business. And for our final segment of the episode, we'll return to fastener blogger Traveling Salesman, and he'll be reporting along with us on the NIFS East show, or the Columbus show as most of us know it. How's that for a lineup of fastener networking for you, Bri?
Well, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I can't think of anything too much better. We are the people behind FastenersClearinghouse.com, and all fully threaded listeners are invited to search the FCH database anytime and at no charge. It's a pretty substantial database, and what actually is the size of the database? How much inventory are we looking at as of this morning, Brian?
Oh, it's about 530,000, and it varies up and down 5,000. Members as they keep uploading and new stuff, new inventory, they're reloading and removing stuff and adding new. So it's a moving figure.
Right, constantly growing and fluctuating up and down just ever so slightly each day, but growing always.
Yeah, that's true. And the search traffic on the site this week has been, I guess it reflects what we hear from the industry and what we're going to hear from some of our people. It's increasing, but it has shown a degree of leveling off. So I guess it's people, the industry is going into a bit of a weak hibernation because of Memorial Day, and there's not the activity actually at the end of this month that there has been in the other 2 months.
And we'll touch on that in a little bit more detail as the show unfolds today. Fully threaded listeners are always welcome to communicate with us at the email address ftr@fullythreaded.com, and we look forward to hearing from you. You're also welcome to take a look at our YouTube channel. We've got a couple of videos up there that hopefully you'll find interesting, and you can find those at www.youtube.com/fullythreaded. You know, Bri, while I was out in Columbus, I don't do this too often, but when I'm on the road, I take a look at USA Today, and scanning the headlines, I saw something that dovetailed with something I caught at a Midwest Fastener Association meeting, the one they had in Rockford very recently, where a representative from Scanwell Logistics was doing a presentation on some of the reasons that transoceanic freight is increasing, the rates are increasing, and it was kind of unusual. There's actually a premium, an insurance premium put on cargo that's shipped past the Gulf of Aden, which is near Somalia, and all the pirates are at work there. And in the USA Today that I was looking at in Columbus, there was a blurb that was really talking about, since the beginning of the year, there's been, I guess, 47 pirate attacks, either attempted or successful, and there's a flotilla of military out there, but these guys just, you can't stop them. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, well, and you know, the Americans, if they want to go back in their history, they'll find that this is not the first time this has happened in the United States history. When Jefferson became the president, he decided that the federal government, in their efforts to limit federal power, would not have a navy, and so they sold off some of the ships, and then immediately found that American ships trying to get through the Mediterranean were being attacked by the Barbary pirates. So the American government had to finally do a deal with the Barbary pirates to stop them attacking American ships, essentially paying them off. Didn't last for too many years. They finally decided that was not really very good for a big power to have to do that.
Well, apparently the racket is still the same. They're doing ransom for the cargo.
This is what they did too in the, I don't know when it was, 1796 or something.
Well, I guess it's just another symptom of the globalization of the industry. Another headline that I caught was in the latest Distributors Link magazine. The cover story of the latest issue is RAF Electronic Hardware. And there's a story in that issue titled Revolution in Fasteners Helps Bridge the Gap to Greener Vehicles by Del Williams. And he's describing some of the things that automotive engineers are doing to find solutions for lighter weight cars. And at the Columbus show, there was a booth by Ohio State University, and Professor Anthony Lucier was there, along with his assistant, Leonard Rusley. And I was talking with them a little bit, and actually we'll cover this again with Traveling Salesman later in the show, but apparently the automotive industry is something that they're going to be paying a lot of attention to in the new curriculum that they're developing.
Oh, that's good. And there's another industry in the US that needs, I guess, revolutionary work in fastener development, and that's our aircraft industry. I mean, Boeing particularly is facing this problem with developing or co-developing fasteners that can be used with the new composite fuselages that they're developing. It's one thing to put a fastener through plates of aluminum, but when some of it's the carbon fiber material, it's a little bit different. Very different, actually.
Well, I'm sure the Ohio State University program is going to cover lots of different applications as the program proceeds. And actually, when we have Professor Lucier on, we'll talk to him about that.
Yeah, and I'll be really keen to find out what they're doing and planning. It'll be a good thing for the fastener industry.
Other headlines, whether you're in the fastener industry or elsewhere, you can't get away from the economy. And in the current American Fastener Journal, there's 3 articles that are really devoted to the economy. So that tells you something about the times we live in. Pirates and crazy economies.
Right. Yes. Neither of which we can predict.
Well, we've got a jammed show today, so why don't we cut the chit-chat segment a little bit short and get with somebody who's all over the economy, and that would be Holden Lewis. We'll listen to what he has to say. Then we'll take a short break and come back and talk about the golf outings with the Midwest and the Pac-West associations. Holden Lewis is an industry analyst for BB&T Capital Markets. He focuses on manufacturing and industrial distribution, and he joins us now from Richmond, Virginia, where he's been watching developments and, as always, I'm sure, the Purchasing Managers Index. Thanks for joining us again, Holden.
Thank you for having me again, Eric. Good afternoon.
Earlier in the show, we noted sentiment seems to be cooling just a bit, and anecdotal reports appear to indicate that business activities leveled off. Although at a significantly stronger pace than we were experiencing earlier in the year, that is for sure. A lot has happened in the economic headlines since our last conversation, and how do you see the industrial landscape at this point?
Well, we haven't seen a lot of the cooling off that you've referred to, and I'll cite a number of numbers here. The most recent data that's available as support for that. You referenced the PMI earlier, but the Purchasing Managers Index in April came in at a whopping 60.4. That is very strong sequential growth over March, and we've seen similar things out of other macro indicators. The industrial production metric that we track was up 2.3% sequentially in April over March. That's the 10th straight increase that we've seen in this measure, and it's also the strongest sequential increase that we've seen since 2002. So some very good readings there. The durable goods orders number that we track was up 4.5% in March over February. So all those indicators tell us that business conditions remain relatively stable. We're also hearing that from a number of companies. If you look at the monthly releases put out by Illinois Toolworks or Kennametal or Emerson Electric, the orders and sales data they've put out for April all remain very strong. So I'm not seeing a lot in the data suggesting that we're seeing any sort of plateauing or cessation of the improving market conditions. Now, I guess I'll say a couple of things. First, this may be a difference between what the big companies that I deal with mostly are seeing and what the smaller companies are seeing. We've seen surveys really pointing to issues with regards to financing and access to capital are having a bit more of a negative impact on the sentiment of small companies than is true for large companies. I think that situation seems to be easing a little bit, but nonetheless, it's still a very real situation, and we may be picking up some of that. The other things I guess I would throw out there, comparisons are getting tougher. Remember that the markets tended to bottom back in June of last year, and so we're kind of approaching that year anniversary, and so all of a sudden that rapid growth off the bottom, the comparisons are getting tougher, so the year-to-year gains don't look as dramatic as they had been, but business conditions do seem to be getting better, but admittedly perhaps the year-to-year growth is slowing down a little bit. The automotive market, I think that is an area where things are beginning to flatten. So to those listeners who might be more inundated or more sort of into the automotive side, clearly you're going to see flatter rates of growth, I think, in production, or certainly maybe just flat production over the balance of the year. The good news is there are other industries coming on and beginning to chip in. Aerospace is one very notable industry. You're starting to hear people speak much more favorably about the aerospace aftermarket. You're hearing a lot of news about production increases from Airbus and Boeing, which may not happen until 11 or 12, but as the supply chain works out, that's going to benefit our listeners a little bit more quickly than that. So auto may be flattening, but some other markets are coming up, and so I think, again, that feeds into this feeling that, generally speaking, growth is still out there in the market. Maybe the last thing to throw out there is a fair amount of buzz around China trying to slow down its markets. There's also a fair amount of buzz right now about what's taking place in Europe, and to the extent that those are issues that seem more likely to impair growth than boost it, it seems reasonable that maybe sentiment's getting a little bit more nervous around the industrial space. But as I look at the macro indicators at this point, I'm not seeing a lot of signs that anything has changed from the improving dynamic that we've had over the past 6 to 9 months.
Well, there are some encouraging points in what you just described, and I'm glad you laid it all out for us. Let's talk about employment a little more specifically next. From what you're seeing, do the industrial revenues appear to be increasing at a rate that would trigger or justify an improved hiring environment in the near term?
I would say, Eric, that we're really progressing along the same path that we were progressing along last time, which is to say that I don't think that people are adding a lot of new resources here. I think we are seeing people coming back from furloughs. We're seeing overtime step back up. We're seeing 6-week work days and 3-shift work days. All those things are increasing. We're even seeing wage increases begin to get reinstituted. So you're certainly seeing a normalization of the employment environment that is impacting the industrials. But all that comes with a caution here, and that is that revenues are still very, very much below the peak that was set 18 months ago or so. And to throw a couple names out there and give an example, Lincoln Electric, a manufacturer of welding equipment, their revenues are up 14% in Q1 from the trough, but they're still down 33% from the peak that was set at the top of the cycle. Kennametal, a manufacturer of metal cutting supplies. Kennametal's revenues are up 28% in Q1 from the trough level set 3 quarters ago. However, their revenues are still down 35% from the peak. And even taking a company like Fastenal, a distributor with relatively more stable revenue and earnings streams, Fastenal's revenues are up about 10% off the trough, but they're still down about 17% from the peak. And so I think conditions are improving for the average industrial employee for sure, particularly if you currently have a job in the industry. But revenues are still well below peak. Utilization in April, the factory utilization in North America is still below 70%. So the reality is there's still some slack out there. Productivity is up. Again, I think that you're seeing normalization, but I don't think that you are at this point returning to an environment where you're going to see very tight markets and a run on industrial labor.
Let's return for a moment to something you touched on already. The effects of the developments in the international markets are most surely impacting activity here in North America. The rocky state of the economic conditions in Greece and the impending Asian transoceanic freight rates are among these. Which do you see is the most important for us to be watching right now?
Frankly, it's really going to be the degree to which Greece matters on other countries, particularly the northern countries. You noted that there's no doubt some impact on North America. I would say that right now the greatest impact from the Greece meltdown is really one of sentiment. It is putting industrial companies kind of on alert rather than impacting the industry currently. Right now, I think as we've talked to our companies and listened to other companies, nobody is saying that they're seeing any real impact from the Greece issues now. And it's not a big surprise. I'm not sure Greece would exceed Illinois in terms of being an economy, and frankly, it's not a particularly industrialized economy. From an industrial standpoint, I can't say that Greece much matters, frankly. But the real question mark that nobody can answer, and which many companies are particularly concerned about, is does Greece then lead to Italy? Does Italy lead to Spain? Does Spain lead to Germany? Because it comes down to it, Germany is the industrial engine and heartland of Europe. And whatever's good for Germany is good for that market. And, the good news for industrial companies is Germany, I think, is fiscally healthier than others. And by the way, the weaker euro is going to benefit an export-driven economy like Germany's. And so, at this point, I'm not assuming that Europe is a disaster for the industrial world. But, in a periodical that we put out every Monday in our weekly this week, we're going to have some quotes there from Eaton Corp, which really I think said it best. They're not seeing any impact from Greece. They're not concerned about Greece specifically. It just doesn't matter. They are concerned about any sort of bleeding into the more industrialized nations like Germany. And unless that happens, I'm not sure Greece is going to be that big a factor. So I think it's raised some antenna, but I don't see it as having much impact currently.
Well, there's certainly a lot to watch, and we appreciate those perspectives. You touched on this also, Holden. You're the co-author of a weekly newsletter, and you've offered to make that newsletter available to Fully Threaded listeners on the fullythreaded.com website. This is a great development, and we very much appreciate the chance to share your industry intelligence with our audience. Can you tell us a little more about this newsletter before I describe how listeners can get it?
I'd be happy to. And Eric, I appreciate you all making this available to your listeners. And let me describe a little bit about what it should do for them. We call it blandly the Manufacturing Weekly Review. And every Monday afternoon, what we do is we aggregate the information that we collect from the companies that we track, specifically in the industrial space, and report that to the readers of the periodical. And it's not just my materials, but it also includes materials from a fellow here named Kevin Maska who does flow control type names. Another fellow named Matt McCall will be joining the effort, and he does electrical equipment type names and commercial durable type names, as well as another fellow, Sean Williams, who does more machinery type names. And so what this piece is intended to be is a very comprehensive and weekly look at what just took place in the industrial world. And in this, we talk about many of the macro statistics that I referenced in our first conversation. When the PMI comes out, we report on it. Industrial production comes out, we report on it and give our view of it. We also have information in there with regards to raw materials, steel scrap, various grades of steel, and sort of what we're hearing and seeing in that part of the world. And then, of course, we report on earnings that take place, so companies can see how other companies are doing. Maybe use it as a benchmarking vehicle, and any other news that impacts the industry. And then finally, we have a section in there which is really just quotables, where we look at a lot of companies that I deal with, and we look at any sort of public presentations they may have made, and if there's discussions in there about the markets as they see them or pricing conditions, we print those quotes from those presentations, and so it really gives a very brief and quick way to keep track of what's going on in the industrial space once a week, and so that also keeps it fairly timely.
I've read the last several issues, and it is a concise digest of information. I think Fully Threaded listeners are really going to benefit from it. Again, the newsletter will be available from the fullythreaded.com website. You'll be able to click on a link that'll be right at the top of the page, and just give us your email address, and we'll make sure that you receive that newsletter every Monday. Holden Lewis, you are an analyst with BB&T Capital Markets. We appreciate, as always, your report and look forward to talking with you next time. Thanks for being with us on Fully Threaded.
Eric, it's always a pleasure. I look forward to it.
FastenersClearinghouse.com. Search and source from over 500,000 line items, all just a mouse click away and available at no charge. When the need arises, you won't find a better place to locate hard-to-find fastener inventory. It's where you need to be.
This is Joe Truckee of Cal Fasteners, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for us.
This is Robert Wanzer, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for American Imperial.
This is Andy Pell from ScrewCrew.com, and FCH works for the fastener industry.
Join the Sourcing Network now and show your inventory to a whole new market. Turn slow movers into cash. List up to 10,000 line items. Show them to distributors only or to the world. FastenersClearinghouse.com. It's where you need to be.
This is Tracy Lumia of Distributors Link Magazine, the #1 publication in the fastener industry. You're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Brian and Eric back with you on Fully Threaded. I was thinking on Tuesday night in Columbus, I had dinner with a couple of the guys from Metric and Multi-Standard Corporation. The Fidelis Fasteners guys were there. A couple of the guys from RL English, the manufacturers reps, and also Solutions Industries. And at almost no time during the dinner did somebody not have a smart device out.
Yeah. Well, that's one of these things that's, you have to be a little careful because it can be construed as being sort of rude, but the reality is that these devices, the smartphones, really can be like a complete mobile office. I mean, you can text people, you can keep your entire address book in them, you can send people faxes, you can receive faxes, you can send emails, and so you can remain completely connected, really, no matter where you are. You could be up in some lake up in Canada even. Imagine that.
Well, the joke was that we were networking machines, basically, and in fact, one of the guys had actually missed his flight on the way into Columbus. And the joke was that he had missed his flight due to networking, but as it turned out, he'd been sitting in the terminal, and his plane just left the gate.
Right. He's not the first person, I think.
Well, fortunately, he made it there, and there was no harm done, and maybe he even got an extra sale out of it. Who knows?
Yeah.
And as great as it is living in the modern age, there's still no substitute for a good round of golf to get some networking done. And there are a couple of great opportunities to do just that are coming up. And the first one that we'll present is being held by the Pacific West Fastener Association. On June 7th, this is actually a golf outing and then a dinner. The Mel Kirshner Memorial Golf Outing is being held. This is all taking place at the Westbridge Golf Club in La Habra, California, which is a suburb of Los Angeles. And hopefully we'll get some follow-up on this, Brian. I know we've got a correspondent out there. I don't know if we've got everything set up, but I'd sure love to hear the results of this thing because some of the big guns are going to be playing on that day.
Yes, well, I would imagine some people who we have interviewed on this show already could be there, actually.
Yes, we're on the same wavelength.
Right.
But if you take a look at the Pac-West website, it's www.pac-west.org. And PAC is PAC, so it's pac-west.org. The dinner that they're having after the golf outing really sounds like a tremendous opportunity to listen in to some of the guys who've been around the industry for a long time and doing some reminiscing. And the title of the panel discussion they're having with several of these guys is Lessons from the Past.
Okay, that sounds like sort of thing I'd like to be into.
And it really does sound worthwhile. So again, the information is all on their website, and the event is taking place on June 7th.
Okay.
Now, a little bit closer to home for us, at least, is the Midwest Fastener Association 2-day event. On June 7th, at the Chevy Chase Golf Course in Wheeling, is the 59th Annual Midwest Fastener Association show. And as I understand it, there are 90 tabletop exhibits, or there's room for 90, and I believe they're nearly at capacity. And that's occurring during the day on June 7th. And then the following day, on June 8th, is the golf outing. Now, the chairman of the golf outing, actually the chairman of the golf committee is Matt Delawder, and he's with SWD Fastener Sorting Corp. And we're going to play a segment with him in just a moment. He's going to give us a little bit more detail about this whole event.
Okay. Yeah, I've met Matt a couple of times.
But this is in Wheeling, Illinois. It's a suburb of Chicago. And the website for further information on this is www.mwfa.net. And why don't we play that clip with Matt right now?
Right.
We're speaking now with Matt Delawder. He's a partner in SWD Fasteners Sorting Corporation, and they're from Addison, Illinois. He's also the chairman of the golf committee, and he's kind of in charge of things out there at the Midwest Fastener Association golf outing. Matt, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you doing today, Eric?
Excellent, thank you. Hey, we were talking at the meeting the other day, the MWFA meeting, about the golf event, and what have you got in store for everybody?
Well, this year's event is going to be held at the Chevy Chase Country Club in Wheeling, Illinois, and we're really looking forward to a great event. As you know, last year we had quite a downturn in the economy, and we were limited by the number of golfers that attended. This year it looks like we're going to have about 100 golfers participating, and it should be a great event.
Wow, that does sound good. What sort of competition is it? I mean, I suppose everybody's operating with a handicap. How's that all organized?
Well, it is a best ball scramble, and it's teams of 4, and you have your typical longest drive and your longest putt, as well as a straightest drive, and there will be awards for the first and second place teams, and afterwards for dinner you'll have your choice of steak and chicken. Then we're also going to have a silent auction and raffle prizes.
It sounds like a great event, but I have to ask, is there also a prize for the most dramatic mulligan of the day?
No, but you can buy mulligans, which is the really nice thing. I believe we allow every person to buy 2 mulligans. So essentially a team of 4 can have 8 mulligans between them. It makes for a much easier day of golfing if you're prone to hit the ball a little bit askew.
I was going to say, I don't know if that's actually enough. What do those run?
Mulligans are actually, we're $5 per golfer before the 21st of May, and after that, so at the event, basically, you'd be charged $7.50 per mulligan. So it's really not that bad of a fee if it could mean the difference between 100 yards and 200 yards.
And it's all for a worthy cause.
It is, yeah. All this money that we're going to raise will be going toward the MWFA scholarships that we give to students within the industry in November, and I believe last year we gave out over $18,000, and we're hoping to do the same type of thing because there are a lot of students who could really utilize the money, especially in these times.
Absolutely. Now, again, the golf outing is being held in conjunction with the Midwest Fastener Association Tabletop Show, and that's happening on June 7th, and that's also at Chevy Chase Country Club, correct?
That is correct, yeah. As a matter of fact, that's going to be going on from, I believe, noon till 5 o'clock on the 7th, and there will be a Fastener Bash afterwards from 6 to 8 p.m. So it should be a great time. You'll be able to, meet with a bunch of people in the industry, talk, and hopefully meet some new customers.
That's the name of the game, that's for sure. Now, all the information and details on the show and the golf outing are available on the Midwest Fastener Association website, and the location of that is www.mwfa.net. And I think I was talking with Nancy, the director of the association, at the meeting the other week, and she indicated I think they're approaching 100 tabletops on the show, so it sounds like it's a pretty solid event.
The tabletop show always goes well for us. It's an easier show to do. You don't have to lug around a big booth, and it's more personal, where you get to meet more one-on-one with the people. You don't feel like you're hiding behind your display, and it really works well with what the MWFA does. We have the tabletop show one year, and then we have the big Fastener Tech show in Rosemont every other year. So again, it's just a real nice, more informal way, but still you're able to get out there and get in front of people. So I think it should go well.
Absolutely. Now, just with regard to SWD, you're the fastener sorting company, of course, but you do more than that. You do a lot of plating, don't you?
Yeah, we actually started out in 1980. This is our 30th anniversary year, and we started out with 3 people. My father was one of the founders. And we started out with black oxide and cleaning operations, very basic, and then moved into passivation and zinc phosphate. And recently we've added manganese phosphate, and we have a Dorkin diff spin line, which is gives some corrosion protection to those parts of over 1,000 hours, depending on what the specification calls out. The Dorkin finish is a newer finish to the U.S. It's been utilized in Europe for quite some time, and a lot of the wind farm specifications call out the Dorkin, or Delta as its trade name is called, and you'll see it on a lot of the European spec automobiles. Our sorting operation, though, we've had that since 1981 when we purchased Fastener Sorting Corp. Out of Rockford. And that originally started, sorting back in the early 80s was something where someone, either a truck line or a plate or a heat treater might have mixed some product together that looked similar, but it was different, and it was just a real simple way of getting mixed product separated. These days, however, we're seeing that sorting is more of a quality check where we're looking to parts to checking dimensions within 1,000ths to make sure that the major and the minor diameter and the pitch angle and everything are right on spec, typically because they're going through an automated feeding system.
Well, that's an area that you are indeed an expert on. I'm sure we'll have no trouble discussing that with you at the show and possibly even out on the course.
You bet. I'm always happy to talk about it.
In between conversations on mulligans.
That's right. That's right.
Now, I have to just ask as kind of a wrap-up question here, what's the arrangement for refreshments out on the course?
There will be a beer or beverage cart going around while players are golfing.
Excellent. Just checking on that.
We're hoping for a nice 80-degree day and sunny, and should just be perfect.
We'll keep our fingers crossed. Matt Delawder, thanks for keeping us informed about what's going on. And again, access the Midwest Fastener Association website for more details. That's www.mwfa.net. Thanks for filling us in, Matt.
You bet. Thank you, Eric. Look forward to seeing you out on the course.
Wow, that sounds really cool. I mean, it sounds like I should really go and try and take up golf again. Actually, probably anyone who knows me would come and suggest that I shouldn't do that. But they could always raise the price of mulligans.
Well, the question would be, how many mulligan shots would you and I need to purchase to be able to place in the top 5?
Too many.
Yeah, we need to sell some screws first, I think.
A lot.
Well, 2 great networking events being held by 2 of the premier fastener associations in the country, and hopefully we're going to hear some good stories about that on the next episode. Let's move, though, to another form of networking that's out there, this one a little bit closer to the first subject that we brought up, and the smart devices and so forth. And we're going to now play a clip of a conversation that we had with Janice Ceresa of Anixter, and she is the owner of the Fasteners Industry group on LinkedIn. So we'll play that now, then take a short break and come back with a recap of the Columbus show with Traveling Salesman. We're joined now by Janice Ceresa. She's with Anixter, the aerospace fastener division, and she is the owner of the Fastener group in LinkedIn. Janice, welcome to Fully Threaded.
Thank you, Eric, for having me.
We were talking in a previous episode about LinkedIn and what we were doing, how we were experiencing this thing, and you know all about it, and boy, we sure have been looking forward to talking with you.
Well, that's great. I'm glad you invited me, and I wanted to talk to you about, I know you introduced me as the owner of the group, and I really love to let folks know that while I started the group, I look at it as more as the industry actually makes up that group. So it really belongs to the fastener industry, not just me.
Sure, I understand. What is involved, however, at being the owner?
Well, what we do is try to facilitate some discussions, more or less get folks interested in joining. And part of the maintenance of the group is just we have a request to join, so allowing people into the group, making sure that I know there's sometimes we get folks that maybe more along the line of spammers or self-promoters, so we kind of make sure that the folks that are joining really have a true interest in the fastener world.
How do you actually go about doing that? Do you go and look up things on the web afterwards? And I mean, how do you really, it's a problem we all face, how do you do that?
Well, what's really interesting is there's a couple folks that will just create names, will have no connections, and maybe they even have same first and last name, or something that's just particularly looking to sell something. And it's great. I'm all about self-promotion. I think that's wonderful. People should share things, but as long as it's in context, it's not too aggressive or too overbearing. Because sometimes I get members from the group that will email me and say, "Oh, can you tell that guy to maybe stop putting the same message up every other week?" So, for the most part, the people that join truly seem to have an interest in the fastener industry.
And they have been joining. There are, as of this moment, 2,209 members, and the group was started June 10th, 2008, so going on 2 years.
Yeah, it's really great. I think it's a lot of folks, it spreads maybe word of mouth, or even, when you look at somebody's profile that may be in the industry, you see some groups that they're actually associated with, and it really gives a very broad aspect of people who join, so people in the metal industry, manufacturing, a wide variety, not just somebody maybe in distribution, but maybe manufacturing or sales. So we get a pretty good cross-section of people joining.
Well, 2 years ago, that's light years in the social networking world, in that genre. What were you thinking when you got this whole thing started? What was your main objective? And also, was Anixter approving of it at that time? And what was the tie-in with your official capacity and just doing this for yourself?
Well, around 2 years ago, that's when I moved to the aerospace hardware division. And when I decided to do that, I really was somewhat selfish. I wanted to learn more about the industry. And I did speak with my boss, Rick Mansfield, and I did labor over the thought about starting up a group. I wasn't going to, I'm not an expert. He kind of talked me through it and, decided to go ahead and start the group. I've gotten super support from the division. All the, the leadership team was just wonderful. So it really wasn't, I didn't labor over it too much. I just kind of jumped into it.
So you must be you're lucky because quite often, and especially in larger companies, there's a great reluctance for any individual to be doing something that, is not on behalf completely of the company. So Anixter's management must be fairly forward-thinking then in terms of technologies.
I feel very fortunate. I've had super support. They've been very encouraging. Anixter has a very entrepreneurial feel about it. So I think with being responsible, you have to be responsible when you engage in social media. But for the most part, I've just gotten overwhelming support.
Oh, that's good.
But let's talk a little bit about really what is happening out there. What is the primary activity that's happening with the LinkedIn group?
I think we get a number of different fastener folks with fastener backgrounds. It runs a gamut from manufacturing, distribution, niche communities, maybe the automotive or specifically construction. So we get a variety of people who are looking to network, and I really think of this group as a conduit. A lot of discussion doesn't really happen, I think, in the group, but I think this is a great place where people actually meet, and they take those conversations maybe off-site, maybe call each other up, talk directly. But some of the discussions, even just questions on where they can locate something, I think that's been very helpful. It's a place for folks to gather and get that information and share information.
So are people within Anixter encouraged to do that?
Sure. I think everybody, a number of our employees are on the website LinkedIn, and they're more than welcome to network. And again, I don't really think of the Fasteners Group as Anixter bound. It really is for the fastener industry. Anyone can actually post their information in there or post their questions and engage in conversations. Mm-hmm. So really encourage that, I think, of everybody who's part of that group.
For folks who aren't familiar with LinkedIn, how would you go about becoming a member of the group?
Well, it's pretty simple. Joining LinkedIn, you can get a free account. So signing up is really simple. It's putting in your email address and a password, and you can share as much or as little as you want on LinkedIn. And then once you've joined LinkedIn, you can join us up to 50 groups. Typically, that's the limit. But if the group has subgroups, you can join those subgroups, and that doesn't count against you as the main 50 that you join. So you have an opportunity just to read a profile or put in a keyword and search and look for a group that maybe has some interest to you, and then join it. So it's pretty simple. And again, if ever anybody has a question about that, they're more than welcome to contact me. My contact information on my profile. So talk to me an email or give me a call.
Again, the name of this group is Fasteners Industry. Are there any competing fasteners groups in LinkedIn, or is this really the biggest fish in the pond?
Well, there's a number of fastener groups, and I think that's what's really great. If you're talking in sheer numbers, it is probably the largest group, but that doesn't necessarily make it, the super best. I think it's what you have to decide when you join any group on LinkedIn. What are you trying to get from it, or what are you interested in? So there's a number of fasteners groups, and that's what makes it really great. You can pick what you want based on what the profile offers. You can join the group, find out what's part of the group. If you don't like the group, you can leave the group. There's no requirement to stay once you've joined. So I think there's, I don't know offhand, there may be like about 40 different fastener groups, and some of them are started by specific companies who are selling fasteners, and it's really from all over the world. I've seen companies from anywhere from China to the Netherlands. So there's a variety to choose from out there.
Do you see any benefit to consolidating the groups, though? I mean, after a while, is it a little bit of overkill, or maybe overkill isn't the right way of thinking of it? Maybe it's just that the information relevant to the industry is too diffused. I know, speaking personally, that before I was invited to this group, and of course I perused it before, but before I actually was invited and I decided to make a concerted effort to get involved and to really begin using it seriously, I did feel that it was a little overwhelming, the vast variety of options that are out there.
Well, I think it's a personal choice. I guess I liken it to, if there was only vanilla and chocolate ice cream to choose in the world, it would get kind of boring. You have variety. You have variety here. So, again, you got to pick the group based on what you're looking for. What are you looking to get from it? And what are you interested in? And, again, I really try to let the group, forge that path. I don't want contrived or orchestrated content. I think it's really important because I've seen where, some groups that I belong to, there's a string that says, here are the rules and regulations to posting. And I think that's what differentiates it. When you have rules and regulations sometimes for posting, it's great, but, conversation should flow. People should be comfortable to provoke conversation, maybe off of something that was even spam. So, I'm not too opposed to duplication. I think that's okay. People will get what they need from the group that they join, and if it's based on they want to go to the largest group, or if they want to go to the group that maybe is specialized even further in a specific kind of fastener, I think that's great. I just want people to feel comfortable having a conversation or discussion. But combining it, I don't know if I'd be a proponent for that. I think the more the merrier.
Well, I think a lot of the questions that we have about this particular group are a subset of the questions that we have about the larger social networking, social media phenomenon. I pay attention to a variety of writers, pundits who comment on this all the time. One of them is Eric Qualman of Kligs.com, and he does frequent commentary on the explosive growth and the way that social networking is revolutionizing business communication, among other things. But he's really focusing on business communication, and it's staggering. For example, he claims that 95% of all corporate recruitment is currently, at least in part, done on LinkedIn. Now, I know you're involved in the recruitment side of things. Is that consistent with what you're seeing?
Yeah, actually, it's great to be able to talk to the candidate directly. And I try to make myself available, and I think that's just a philosophy we have at Anixter. In some respects, we're easy to do business with. So if somebody wants to call me about a position that they saw on our board, or they have a question about a specific job, or even if they just are looking for some information on how they should write their resume, whether they're applying with Anixter or not, I'm happy to lend out that information. I think the more accessible you are, the more opportunity you get a chance to meet people. So I think that's where social networking has really been a great catalyst in getting people in contact with people. So, making yourself available is really what social networking is about, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say now, Anixter for us has been a good member. Anixter was one of our very early members who signed up to, experiment with doing business on the web and selling fasteners on the web when it was a concept that other people didn't think that was suitable for the web. So we have a good relationship with a number of people in Anixter.
We were talking earlier about one of the questions that struck us both, which is, why isn't the group even more widely used than it is? For example, if you go out onto the main group and you look at some of the discussion threads or the news entries, a lot of them don't really have that many views. What do you think's behind that? Why isn't it even more widely used since there's 2,200 members?
Well, I think people have to feel comfortable making those discussions. And if you remember, the Internet's forever. So anytime you write something down, I think people are concerned that it may be misconstrued. It's a new form of media, I think, for people, and to share that information just may be a little overwhelming. Sometimes it's fun just to sit back and watch. There have been some spirited interactions. So, for them to use it for, on a daily basis, I don't know if that's necessarily going to end up being something that happens every day. I think initial contact will happen through that, those discussions. But a lot of times you'll see folks who'll say, hey, give me a call, or here's my email address. So, it just depends on what the conversation is about. If you talk in general, I think you see some general comments, some people looking for information. But you're a member. You joined the group. What kind of discussion do you think you would start if you could?
Well, it's exactly like you said. The conversations that I have participated in have been sort of offline. I'll see a comment or a question, and then I'll get directly with that member. And I don't, it's funny. I'm not exactly sure why I don't just put it out there, but I guess I'm just more used to the paradigm of one-on-one, and so it's kind of a back channel way of communicating, but it's one that I'm more familiar with. Yeah,
and I think a lot of times folks, again, if you can start that initial conversation, or you see somebody has a similar challenge, this is just a great way to connect. And I think as people get used to the medium, I think you'll see this more and more, that there'll be maybe an opportunity to have those conversations. And that was the reason why some of the subgroups were created. I think, some folks just wanted to kind of, common interests, wanted to have those conversations with people with common interests. They didn't want to throw it on the main board. So I know that a lot of requests for specific, can we have a group just about quality? Can we have a group just about automotive? There were folks that just wanted to maybe take it offline, and maybe almost like when you're at a conference, you take it to a conference room, as opposed to doing the main discussion, which people do read. I mean, you get those sent to your email boxes, so folks will read your comments.
And the other thing is that, this is a very conservative industry. Some would say a little old-fashioned, okay, especially technically. And so the idea of a discussion group is probably, to a lot of people in the fastener industry, a little bit radical.
You're probably correct. And I think that, in general, I think some of the other groups that I belong to, I think, if there's something people aren't sure of, they're just not going to write it down in a discussion. Or if they do, I've seen where they've written something and then they go ahead and delete it a few hours later. So again, when you write something, it sometimes translates different than what you verbally say. So I think there's just a little bit more caution, but I think with time, I think they'll see these groups as somewhat beneficial.
Getting back to some of the punditry and some of the comments, there's another factoid that stuck out at me, and that they claim that 1 out of every 8 marriages currently happening in the U.S. is a result of social networking. So now you've got 14 subgroups under fasteners. Did you ever think of fastener singles?
Wouldn't that be interesting? Maybe in HR, I'd like to stay as far away from that one as possible. But
well, you'd have all the fun of moderating it. Think of it.
Exactly. I could be the Chuck Woolery of fasteners, love connection. But
right. Yeah.
But yeah, social network is coming a long way.
Actually, there's another comment in the same vein as the guy who Eric was giving you a couple of comments. He made another one which was interesting, and he points out that this is what they measure or they think. 78% of people believe a recommendation coming through a social networking system, yet only 11% will believe a recommendation coming through an advertisement.
Wow, that's interesting. I think everybody, what you read is one thing, and then when you talk to somebody, when you have more of a information that you see on the web is somewhat one-dimensional. So I think once you talk to folks, it's a lot different. When you actually talk to that person, maybe making the recommendation, it gives you a little bit more idea of where they're coming from or what they're recommending. So there's nothing that beats a good old-fashioned phone call.
Well, what you do is, to a certain extent, a labor of love, and I know you're learning as you go, and you're getting a lot out of it. Just out of curiosity, do you have any co-owners or co-administrators of the group, or do you do most of this on your own?
I do most of this all on my own, and we've got a number of groups out there that I moderate, but. It's been wonderful. It's been beneficial because a lot of those folks, the industry veterans, I've learned so much from. It can sometimes be a little overwhelming, but it's a great way to learn about the industry and the folks that are in it and who make it up. So I feel very fortunate to be able to do it. So I don't really think of it as hard work. It's really been a great, rewarding kind of experience for me.
Well, you're doing a great job, and we really appreciate it. And I hope Fully Threaded listeners who are not familiar with the LinkedIn group will get out to LinkedIn.com. If they're not members already, create a membership or an account and get out there and join in. on the Fasteners Industry Group.
Thank you so much.
Janice, well, thanks very much for joining us. We look forward to you continuing to not own but look after this group, okay? Because we're very concerned about making sure that the fastener industry does advance into the technical age, okay? We will all benefit from that.
Thank you, Brian.
Traveling Salesman reviews the Columbus Show. Coming up next.
The Midwest Fastener Association would like to congratulate all 11 recipients of this year's MWFA Scholarship Awards, which totaled $17,000. The MWFA is dedicated to education through our scholarship program, which has awarded over $300,000 since the program began, and through our ongoing education classes on fastener-related topics. This year, the MWFA marks its 64th year, making us the oldest association in the fastener industry, with members from coast to coast. We serve and promote the needs of the fastener industry and our members, and we invite you to participate. Please visit us at our website at www.mwfa.net. The Midwest Fastener Association, helping build the future of the fastener industry.
This is Sue Rice with the FCH team. It's my job to make sure that as an FCH member, you receive the highest possible benefit from your participation in the network. Did you know that once you're logged into FCH, you have access to exclusive search tools, site statistics, and tracking information about your inventory and source finder inquiries? It's all just a click away, and I'm happy to walk you through it. If it's time to refresh your inventory, don't worry. We'll run your listings through our scrubber software and get you up and running in a very short time. If you can attach a spreadsheet to an email, you can list inventory on FCH. We can also show you how to optimize your listings to attract the most hits for your type of fastener. Send email to Sue at fastenersclearinghouse.com and let me help you get the most from the FCH Sourcing Network. I look forward to hearing from you soon.
Hi, Bob O'Brien of Certified Products in Chicago. You're listening to Fully Threaded Radio, the largest proponent of free beer in the fastener industry.
NIFS East, the Columbus Show, is history. It happened today, Wednesday, May 26th. And with us for an encore appearance on Fully Threaded is Traveling Salesman to discuss it. Traveling Salesman, thanks for being with us again.
It's my pleasure. Glad to do it.
It's been a long day. I'm not sure where you are. I was out there in Columbus today, and after a long drive home, I'm back safely ensconced in the Chicago area. What were your impressions of the show?
Well, I'm still here. I stayed over a second night. My gut reaction to the show was a very good show. And I think one of the things that, as I say that you need to consider is I think some people weren't sure what to expect of this show this year. Because the Fastener Show East did get put on hold last year. They skipped the year. And there were many reasons, I suppose. One they said pretty publicly was because of the poor economy. People just weren't in the mood, I guess, or didn't want to put the money out to attend the show. And so Jim Bannister and Mike McGuire decided to postpone it the year. So I don't know if people really knew what to expect this year, but I did hear quite a few people say in the aisles that the show was better attended than they maybe expected, and the show seemed really good. I think a lot of the exhibitors felt that it was well attended and maybe even a little bit better than they were expecting.
I heard that also. Especially this morning, people were really impressed with the number of people that were walking the aisles when the show opened.
Yeah, and like any of the shows that you go to, there's times when it's more busy than others. By the end of the day, people are starting to clear out, and that's with almost any show. But the early hours, it was very busy. There was a lot of attendance from the Ohio area and the surrounding states. You could see an awful lot of distributors that had attended from the area. And I just, like I did with the All-American show, I kind of noted in my brain where I saw people coming from. And some very large distributors were well represented there. There was an awful lot of people from the Worth companies. I saw people from Anixter. I saw people from Barnes. I saw some people from McMaster Carr. And just a lot of big names in our industry. Those are important distributors that people hope show up at the shows and come to see what's new with the different vendors who are exhibiting. So I think it was, a very good cross-section, a lot of people from outside the area as well. And I'm sure they could give you a breakdown of where everybody came from. But it did look to be a good cross-section, and particularly strong from the surrounding areas.
Well, this is one of the original early centers of the fastener industry in America, isn't it? Around Ohio and up to Rockford, all around this whole area.
Yeah, I think the Midwest in general, going from Cleveland up to Chicago and Rockford, you still have a lot of manufacturers there. A lot of the importers have branches in at least one of those, if not both cities.
Right.
And again, Columbus is a little bit south of Cleveland, but again, that's where the show originated, and they keep coming back. And I know next year it's going to move to the facility that they had held the show in originally when they first started, and we're pretty excited about that as well. So, but this is still a hotbed for fastener companies in these few states around here.
Oh, yeah. Now, we have a number of members from Ohio, and, they've been some of our very early members, actually, which is a good sign.
Right. And I think with the show, they did some things that, they're trying to build it into more than just a fastener show. I know they had Rob and Larry from the Fidelis Group speak the night before about the Asian market and what's going on there. And I don't know, I wasn't able to attend, even though I know those gentlemen, but I think they bring some interesting observations from their interaction with the Asian market and other places they go to source fasteners around the world.
I did have a chance to sit in on that conference, and I tell you, these guys really do know their stuff. One of the good things was that they had a lot of questions at the end, and there's a good level of interactivity. And I didn't hear one question thrown out that they didn't have a very good answer for.
Yeah, I got to meet with them at the show. I wasn't at their presentation, but I did spend quite a bit of time talking with them. And then a couple of the other things I thought, I know there was a conference on women in the fastener industry. I also was not there, and I don't know if it was just for women, but I think that's interesting. I do know some women that had expressed interest in attending, and again, hopefully they'll report in how that went, and I hope it went well. And a couple other things that I thought were a little bit of a twist on maybe what you see at other fastener shows. They did have a booth set up from Ohio State University. This fall, they're going to be starting to offer a class on fastening, and I think that's the first major university, or probably the first university to do that. And it's within the Ohio State University. It's called the Advanced Assembly and Fastening Center at the Ohio State University. It's part of the mechanical engineering program. And I spent some time talking to those guys and thought it was something new and interesting at the show that wasn't there before.
It sounds like a great, really well thought out course that they're going to be offering there, actually, and probably we'll see if we can get back to that a little bit, in one of our following episodes, I think.
No, and I think it's great that they came and put themselves in the middle of all of us fastener people and interacted. And when I was there, I just point blank asked them, what kinds of things are you going to be involved with? Tell me a little more. And they've been invited into Honda to do a 2-day seminar with the same group of people because Honda's just looking at different ways to assemble. And I think a lot of their interaction outside of strictly doing maybe a class, they want to interact more with local manufacturing and trying to improve ways that they manufacture and use fasteners. And I think everybody should be interested in that because we all deal with engineers. We've all had prints that we wonder why anyone on earth would have put that fastener in that location. And thank God somebody's going to start working with some of the engineers and explaining what's readily available and what could work just as well as the things they come up with. So I'm sure there's a lot of promise to this, and it's just starting. So it was interesting to talk to the people there.
Now, we're going to keep our eye on that for sure, and Mike McGuire is one of the guys who's driving that along, too.
Right, yeah. We have an interest in that ourselves.
We all should, really, in our industry. Ultimately, it affects us all. Even if you are the smallest distributor that's asked to provide a part made to print, we all want to make sure that fasteners are being installed correctly. And they said there are companies that are all the time having issues, and we hear about Boeing in the news. Some fasteners either compromised or not working the way they're supposed to. So, it does affect us, and we're the guardians of the fastener industry. All the people that work in the industry every day, we're the ones they're trusting to come up with the right stuff for the things we're building. So
that's right. Yep. Yeah, we've said before, every single thing we're surrounded by that works is a result of some sort of engineering and a group of fasteners holding it together.
I would think, and some of the stuff that doesn't work, too.
You mean like a space station that's designed to metric specifications, and then someone tries to bolt a U.S. Imperial thing onto it?
I just drill it out. Sorry.
Fortunately, I think everyone's forgotten that embarrassment. That's from 10 years ago.
All right.
So what was the buzz on the floor? What was the theme, aside from the size of the show, the attendance, and so forth? What's going on in business these days? What are you hearing out there, traveling salesman?
Well, last year, of course, was a miserable year for a lot of people. And there's actually a few companies that said they did just fine and had some growth, which is nice. But almost to a person, the beginning of this year has been much stronger. I think a lot of companies, if not the majority, had a strong first quarter. As it's moving forward, there are still people that are finding business to be very good and strong, but there are some people that have seemed to cool down a bit. And, I'm not sure if April and May had the same strength that the first 3 months did. It still seems that it's better than last year, and it's not terrible, but it seems like we've cooled off just a little bit, or a number of companies have, but certainly not everybody.
Yeah, we see something very similar to what you're saying. We see that we don't see 2 months of cool down. We see the month of May as being a cool down, and it may be that usually is. Definitely January, February, March, April were all months that month over month showed increases in all the activity on our site and in every way that we measure it. The number of people searching, the number of people looking for specific things, the number of people calling up customers. Month of May is a little bit off, about 15 to 20% off last month. And some of the customers I've talked to also say this is pretty much what they see too.
Right, and I've heard similar things. And I think another thing that was talked about a lot in the aisles of the show, and out as I'm traveling around, is the price increases are coming, no doubt about it. 15% is a number that gets thrown out there pretty frequently.
Oh.
The importers are seeing costs go up. The new cores and IFAS groups and a lot of those manufacturers that are staples of the industry, they've raised their prices. And the distributors are going to be reacting to that in the market. So that has some effect also as people are trying to gauge what they're going to do, how are they going to raise prices to their customers, how quickly are the prices going up. So that might also be something affecting business, just as the distributors take an inventory on what's coming in the next few months and trying to get a strategy.
Well, speaking of inventory, what do you hear about the availability of inventory? Is the pipeline still stressed out like it was? I think it is. I haven't really heard anything that would change that, but what have you heard?
Absolutely, certain items and certain types of products I've heard of as being hard to find, no doubt about it. There's probably a lot of things that are still commonly available and will be, but there's definitely some items that are hard to find right now. Again, I think the first 3 months, a lot of people were rebuilding their inventories because they had nothing on the shelves. And then I do think there's just more consumption, and because of that, there are going to be outages.
Yeah. Yep. It's a great reason for, if the prices are going up and will continue to go up, it's a great reason for people to try and use Fasteners Clearinghouse, because then they can get hold of hundreds of companies that may have bought the material they're looking for, the fasteners they're looking for, at a time when the prices were lower.
Which would make a lot of sense, because everything seems like it's going to be going up at least, to some percentage here in the next couple months.
Right, yeah.
Well, to summarize that then, there's really not a lot of surprises in the market at this point, but it's always good to hear what others are saying just to validate your own experiences, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the mood was similar from distributor to distributor and different suppliers. It's odd, there doesn't seem to be a lot of unique news right now. Everybody seems to be in step with everybody else. Everybody seems to have had a pretty good first quarter. Everybody's kind of looking at some cost increases in the next month or two. And there's really not a lot of shakeups in the industry, not any huge amounts of new news or headline news, which might be just fine. I think people are just busy and glad to be recovering from the dismal year that was last year.
Well, either that or it's the calm before the storm.
That would be interesting, too.
Right. If the storm is a heap of new activity, that would be good. I wouldn't like to think it was going to crater back down to last year again.
Well, here's a news flash. This is a first in the history of Fully Threaded Radio that we've had a guest on consecutive episodes. And Traveling Salesman, that distinction goes to you.
I'm proud to be that person, and thank you for having me on in consecutive episodes.
It's our pleasure.
So once again, the Columbus Show, NIFS East 2010 is in the books. The next one, the big dance in Vegas, is coming up in November, and we're definitely going to see everybody out there, and we'll be reporting on that one too.
Sounds like a plan.
Thanks for joining us.
FastenersClearinghouse.com. Search and source from over 500,000 line items, all just a mouse click away and available at no charge. When the need arises, you won't find a better place to locate hard-to-find fastener inventory. It's where you need to be.
This is Joe Truckee of Cal Fasteners, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for us.
This is Robert Wanzer, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for American Imperial.
This is Andy Pell from ScrewCrew.com, and FCH works for the fastener industry.
Join the Sourcing Network now and show your inventory to a whole new market. Turn slow movers into cash. List up to 10,000 line items. Show them to distributors only or to the world. FastenersClearinghouse.com. It's where you need to be.
This is Rick Porter with Mid-Valley Distributors, the largest stocking distributor of fasteners in Central California. If we don't have it, weld it. You're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Fully Threaded. Brian and Eric back with you. You know, thinking back to Janice's segment about LinkedIn, I had a conversation at the Columbus Show with Mike McNulty, editor of Fastener Technology International magazine. And he pointed out, interestingly, that a lot of the traffic that he sees coming in from LinkedIn is actually from unemployed colleagues looking for opportunities, looking for job openings, and so forth.
Well, using these various social networking places like LinkedIn, if you listen back to Janice's comments and some of the numbers that came up during that, something like 90% or more of people who are finding new jobs are doing it through these social networking sites now, and the companies are using them themselves, where they used to use other ones. So keeping abreast of these the relevant social networking sites, in this case LinkedIn, if you're in the fastener industry and the group that we mentioned, this just helps you stay connected and stay relevant and keep up with what's going on.
Yeah, it's really, really powerful stuff. And speaking of staying connected, we hope that you'll send us email at ftr@fullythreaded.com. We also hope that you'll take advantage of the BB&T Capital Markets Manufacturing Weekly. That's a newsletter that our analyst Holden Lewis is offering to all Fully Threaded listeners. And all you need to do is go to the website and give us your email address and let us know that you're interested, and we'll make sure that you receive that every week.
And remember, go to Fully Threaded and you can click on the link and you can go straight to iTunes and subscribe to the podcast, and it automatically gets downloaded to your phone or your iPod, and everything's easy. You can listen to it on the car on the way to work and make the drive easier.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun at the Columbus show showing people with my iPhone, and people just couldn't believe it. It was really a lot of fun. But that's a good point. Everybody, take advantage of iTunes. If you don't know what it's like, ask someone who's under 12.
You're right. That's the problem.
So then, thinking back to this whole thing with the pirates we were talking about at the top of the show, here's something like out of a Robert Louis Stevenson novel for you. You're walking down this white sandy beach, palm trees blowing in the wind, and you've got your shovel and your map, and you're following it along, and X marks the spot. You start digging, you pull out this chest, you open it up, and the pirates had buried it, and what do you get when you open the lid? Lo and behold, it's just a whole pile full of cap screws.
But would they be grade 2 or grade 8 cap screws?
Well, maybe they'd be gold-plated.
Well, given the way inventory is these days, it might not even matter.
That is true. Well, that's another Fully Threaded in the books. And for Brian Musker, this is Eric Dudas. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll talk to you next time.
I can't think of anything else to say at the moment, okay?